Welcome back to my crazy studio in my basement. So this is a little video just getting at the main and original question that you might have when you read the title of a book called The End of Divine Truthiness is what in the world is divine truthiness? So the idea here is that each example of divine truthiness is basically a little idol. It's a God replacement strategy that we've been sort of using for millennia. I start the book talking about the rise of authoritarianism, and I say that it's nothing to be surprised about. I mean, authoritarian rulers arise, and then there are people who follow those people that have that inclination, and we shouldn't be surprised by that either. We just look at history. The real scandal is when we don't do something about it, right? Like that's where things go wrong. And this book scrutinizes some of the theological underpinnings of tyranny and authoritarianism and despotism. I think it seems like our minds and our hearts come crashing against one another every time we're faced with ideas like this. On the one hand, we say, well, God is God, so God's in total control, and the most terrible things happen, right? I mean, what do we mean by that? Are we saying that God did it? I don't want to list off the terrible things, but think of the terrible things. Do you think that God, who has all the power, is the one who perpetrates the worst atrocities? Does God express God's love through the power of a tornado that kills the people who do not have the correct kind of faith? Love starts to not mean anything if you say, well, that is God's love. I mean, what do we do with a person who acted like that and just sort of doled out agony and suffering? We kind of avoid that person. So anyway, this is the sort of the constellation of ideas that's at the root of me searching for a way to talk about this and a way out of it, to say that's not what the right way of thinking about God and power and love is. So this book calls on the satirical genius of Stephen Colbert, especially his word truthiness, to give us a category, a language, a way of talking about the dehumanizing and maybe even the dangerous elements in religion. Any power that ruins love is a divine truthiness, right? And I think it's an indication that it's not the correct way to think, right? In 1967, part of the underpinning for this book is the challenge from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he, in 1967, said, "One of the great problems of history is that the concepts of love and power have usually been contrasted as opposites, polar opposites, so that love is identified with a resignation of power and power with a denial of love." And he says what is needed is a realization that power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Love and power require each other. They make each other to exist fully. When you remove one or you get one wrong, it ruins the other one, and vice versa. So I hope that the addition into this dialogue of Buddhism and Taoism as playful and loving partners in dialogue, I hope makes this seem like a more full approach that recognizes that it's possible that there's something beautiful and wholesome and true about this approach to power that makes love actually blossom rather than ruining it. This book is for everyone who's been harmed by tyrants and bullies of every sort. I've come to be convinced that powerful love is on your side. And it's because I take one statement in the Bible as literally true, and that is that God is love. I hope you'll join me in my quest to end divine truthiness so that we can set that aside and make way for the God whose love is real, the God whose power is actually love. Thanks.